Welcome back to The Next Big Move. Today we're tackling a topic that's reshaping the future of aviation, automation. From AI-supported air traffic control to fully automated takeoff systems like Embraer's E2 enhanced takeoff system set to debut in 2025, automation is making air traffic more efficient and precise. But with progress comes questions. Are we becoming too reliant on technology? Will pilot skills erode? And can AI truly support human expertise in high-stakes situations? Joining us today is Dr. Branka Subotic, an industry leader at the forefront of these changes. She's currently head of human factors and transformation at SkyGuide, Switzerland's air navigation service provider. In her role, she leads strategy on human factors, automation, and organizational transformation, ensuring technology enhances aviation without compromising safety. Before SkyGuide, she spent over a decade at NATS, the UK's largest air navigation service provider, where she climbed the ranks from senior human factors specialist to director of analytics. She's also worked in data strategy consulting, advising fintech, retail, and software companies on how to leverage data for smarter decision-making. Branka, welcome to The Next Big Move. Branka, it's great to have you here. Automation in aviation has been evolving for decades, but it seems like we're at a tipping point. What do you think is driving this shift towards automation now more than ever?
To be honest, it's in the world of air traffic management, it's the capacity. So we're seeing more and more traffic, and we have seen last year, 2024, we have seen that we actually, at least in Switzerland, we had more traffic than in 2019, which was kind of the reference peak year in our industry. And essentially the traffic has recovered, and it's going upwards, which means that we as air navigation service providers need to be ready to face that traffic and control that traffic. And we do have limitations, physical limitations in terms of space, but also resources, like it's not easy to find people who are geared to become air traffic controllers. And the training also takes a while. So, between the moment you realize, oh, we need more people, and actually you're getting that people can be a few years.
So you're sort of playing catch up to realize.
Playing catch up. So we need to think in advance. Yeah.
And I'm guessing sorry,
Karen. Fine. Thinking in advance is actually thinking of automation. And I'm a big supporter of automation, but when it's done smartly.
Yeah. And so is the 2019 reference point, I'm guessing that was COVID, so the decline of COVID and now kind of the peak up again?
That was pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, we had the highest traffic levels ever in aviation.
Okay. And do you think then the reliance on automation, like you said, you're constantly playing catch up, but is it that the problem now is striking a balance between automation and human oversight, or is it now training the people on automation? Like, which point is coming first?
Yeah, first we need to strike the balance right. So in air traffic management, various different countries and companies are exploring potential use of machine learning and AI to support controller. So it's not about replacing necessarily controller tasks, but actually supporting controller to do certain tasks quicker and maybe with more precision, because the tools should be there to make your job easier. But for me, what's important is that we remain human-centric. So human has to be a decision maker. And that means that human has to be involved in the task. I'm a big proponent of replacing monotonous and repetitive tasks with automation. And this is when a human operator would agree and decide, I'm going to give these type of tasks to automation fully, but I'm going to retain everything else. And for me, it's about supporting him or her in doing their job, doing it quicker, better, safer. And we already have tools over the course of the years that are amazing, that really make a huge difference. And I see automation just bringing that next step, which is like a logical trajectory for us. However, it has to be done smartly, and I will keep repeating this, has to be human-centric. And I'm a big proponent that the human operator remains a decision maker.
And do you think that before introducing sort of AI and automation across the board, there needs to be consensus on which, so for example, you said the human-centered tasks need to stay always human-centric, but to remove autonomy, is that across the board when it comes to air service navigation, or is it certain tasks that can never be human, like, are there certain tasks that will always have to be 100% human-centric, and are there certain tasks that will always have to be automated? Or is there certain stuff that, for example, everything can be both 50-50 sort of human-centric and automated?
EASA defined certain levels of automation that we're all now looking at. And one of these levels is teaming. You know, there will be AI and human teaming in doing certain tasks. And there are different levels of teaming, but what I envisage in the future is that there are certain monotonous repetitive tasks we can give and fully automate. But majority of the tasks we will have human involved, but human will be supported by AI supported tools. So AI may tell you these are the 3 best options to resolve a potential conflict, loss of separation. And then you as a human operator, you will have enough time, because this is done way in advance. You will have enough time to probe those 2 or 3 options, and you choose the best one, in your opinion. So you are,
still using your brain.
You're cognitively fully aware decision you have made, and why are you making this decision? Because there could be certain contextual, environmental, organizational factors that day, that may drive this will be the best decision in this moment.
And do you think that, for example, you're saying that, for example, the automation will give you 3 or 4 options, and then the human has the executive decision-making power on it. Do you think that, I'm now thinking that, will there ever be, for example, a hypothetical incident that the person then, if they make a bad decision, is it the person's responsibility? Or I'm assuming they'll be like, I got fed some information from AI. I'm guessing it'd be easy to point fingers, but at some point, I think that might inevitably happen. But how is that at the moment dealt with, if you have any existing sort of, not incidences, but in examples that currently have happened, where support tools are giving options and then the person's making the decisions?
Right now, we don't have the use of ML or AI in our air traffic management. We're exploring certain tools that will be based on it. But yes, that's a very good point, because yes, there will be incidents. And yes, the human will be fed by a set of data or solution provided by AI ML. In air traffic management world, we try to go with just culture, so no blame culture, because that increases the level of reporting and the awareness actually what's going on. And yes, there will be instances where a human potentially makes, every time a human makes a decision, they think they're making the right decision. Nobody comes to work or very
making bad decisions.
Exactly. Nobody does that. But in that particular moment in time, based on information you have, you thought this is the best course of action. And with the hindsight, which is a great thing, we may actually understand, well, maybe that wasn't such
and it's a lesson learned, rather than you say like
exactly
shifts.
Exactly. And this is when we would then think about, okay, it was the environment around human that led human to believe this was the right decision. How can we improve this environment to have ready data information given to human that are actually credible? And that will lead to better decisions. So we then need to look at the environment around the human itself, of course, but the environment around controller, and see how can we improve that environment in terms of design, filtering, mathematical models and so forth, to actually give human the right information at the right time.
And do you find at the moment, I know that you said you're you're for the adoption of automation and support and AI. Is there any pushback or controversy at the moment where people are just not interested in that, or is the world of sort of air navigation has to adapt with technology? Do you find that there is some pushback, or is there no pushback because everyone's sort of technologically focused and forward thinking?
There will be pushback. When you work with humans, you need to be ready to a range of different opinions, and it's the same thing with air traffic controllers. Of course, there will be pushback because we train controllers to, kind of follow the processes and make very time critical and safety critical decisions, and it's their license at stake. So I completely understand when they're nervous and worried about the future, and I completely respect that. But it's through conversations. We won't be designing these things without air traffic controllers. Yeah. We design them with air traffic controllers. Yeah. And we try to make their job easier.
Yeah.
But not less interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
that's very important. The job has to remain challenging, interesting, opposite of monotonous, dynamic. But you see the tools as something that help you. And, we can maybe relate to automobile industry. We're all benefiting as drivers from certain safety features in our cars.
Yeah.
And you can tell, like, if you buy a new car, there is a whole set of new features.
Yeah.
Some you
like
hate.
Parking and like the sensors.
Yes, self-parking cars, or if you steer away on the white line, midline, the steering wheel will move on its own. Or if you don't brake in cars
enough. It does automatically brakes for you. Yeah. So exactly. I guess the AI is viewed as more like a co-pilot than a replacement in air traffic management. So it's like you said, working with them. But I guess the need to constantly keep it challenging, is that so that people don't, like the people that are working at the air traffic controllers, don't necessarily lose any critical skills that they had before, so that they're also continuously learning the same way that the AI will continuously be learning, but rather do you find that maybe in the future the way that the training of air traffic controllers will be different than it is now, because obviously AI and automation will be more involved?
Yeah, it will have to be, it has to evolve with times. But essentially, you want controllers to retain this decision making, which is solutioning, at the end of the day. And you want to help them, instead of assessing or assuming distances or how much time between two aircraft, or what are the right speeds. You will have tools that calculate this much faster than our human brain. And this is where we use tools and use their strengths, So you have an accurate information and not an estimate to base your decision on. And then a tool, maybe where AI is really strong, is that AI can analyze multiple different options in milliseconds. Whereas we as humans can't. So why don't we use AI to actually assess all possible options and flag up two best ones? And best ones according to the parameters that we set as designers. And then a controller interrogates those two options consciously, because they have time for this. They don't just bluntly pick one. And then they decide consciously which one is the best using their professional opinion.
I guess at the same time that you're explaining this, I think probably the level of sort of stress and fatigue as well in air traffic controllers will inevitably go down, just because, like you said, instead of using an AI system that can think of something in a millisecond and do all the risk assessments and come up with better answers and more accurate answers than a human could, I'm guessing that AI is also seen as like a stress and fatigue management tool, or is it not viewed that at the moment?
I wouldn't, like the world of air traffic control is very dynamic. You can have like certain cloud formations just occurring out of nowhere and messing up your entire traffic flow. And you need to now like shift the traffic around it to make it more comfortable for the passengers. Nobody likes turbulence, probably, so So the world will remain dynamic because we
Stressed.
will have to tactically react you can't predict everything, you know.
Yeah.
And as much as meteorological data and predictions we get, they're not really always like 100% right. And we all often get information from the pilots about you know, clouds and turbulence and stuff like that that we then use. So what I'm trying to say is like, yes, I think the world of air traffic management is currently really well managed and regulated, and we're trying to minimize stress and fatigue for our colleagues. But of course, it happens. You know, sometimes you have sicknesses in the unit, and you have less staff, and hence you can't open each and every sector you would like to. So you will have those peaks in workload. You have traffic and storms and clouds creating havoc. You know,
you can't really automate weather.
Yeah, you can't automate that. So you know, you will have to react tactically to this and move things around. And this is maybe where AI may not be helpful. These are the moments where maybe you switch off AI and you just tactically, manually shift all of this around. And then once it's done, you switch on AI again, and off you go. And I want to say one more thing about training. One thing that I thought of with few colleagues is the importance of switching AI on and off. We talk a lot about training in air traffic management, but if we're really going to keep skill intact and fresh, in my view, and this is something that I'm a big proponent of, is that we would be switching these AI tools on and off. And it could be a supervisor deciding which time of the day we can allow a bit more delay, because inevitably we may get more delay. But we allow a bit more delay with traffic because we want to enable training. And training, the best way to train is actually switch it off, let them work manually.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
No, I think that's like probably the best way to go as well, because then you avoid the reliance. People might get lazy and be like, oh, AI is doing it. But rather than announcing that it's going to be switched off, you let them have sort of not like a critical incident response, but you start to realize what their brain is doing when the AI is working. And do you think, I mean, I know that we mentioned this very briefly about the reliance between sort of the pilots giving information back to air traffic controllers for weather. What do you think about pilotless commercial flights? If there's no pilots there, who's going to give you information?
AI. But I don't think we're close to this. I think as a society, we're not ready to fly in unmanned aircraft.
It's a very it's a hot topic. It's a fun thing to talk about, especially like the US and like Elon Musk are very all about self-driving everything. But I think people still enjoy the aspect of seeing people, and I don't think aviation is there to replace pilots at the moment. But I always ask this because it's always something that comes up, even like personal conversation. There's like mild fears, like my father and his co-pilots and pilot colleagues are always talking about this, even though it's not going to happen, but it's like a thing that they discuss. So for me now, looking from the perspective where you said air traffic controllers, is that a thing that you even think about, or is it you've got many other things to worry about than pilots?
No, we don't think about it. But let me ask you a question. Would you be in a train without a driver?
So it's interesting you say that. So in London, the DLR is
I know that's why I'm asking.
Without a driver, and I understand the DLR because it only really goes forward and back, and it goes through routes that I think that if anything was to happen, there's like a very minimal risk. But I don't think the DLR can reach the normal speeds that like the underground can. Having said that, it's fun for like when you're a child to sit at the front and you sort of see it like a roller coaster. But from the perspective, I don't personally ever think about the behind the scenes work that goes from people that are like train conductors or even just the service people that work on the stations. So I can imagine once the DLR goes down, everything goes down. And I live on a station that's near the DLR. Every other week, the DLR is down. I don't know if that's people. I don't know if that's the London transport system. But other than the other ones, like the Jubilee line is manned, like there's people on it. But I do think that I don't know how much it affects services, specifically trains, but I do think the element of seeing a driver makes people feel more confident that someone is driving them, rather than they're like on a roller coaster, like I said, where you just kind of sit and go through a loop and that's it.
Yeah.
But
There is a metro line in Paris.
Mhm.
There is unmanned.
Okay. How does
For
that?
years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Paris metro is similar to London. It's very complicated. So, and it's working, you know. And I don't think even most people are aware of that it's unmanned.
Really? And then it never has. This could just be a problem with the London transport system. I don't think it's
Yeah. It's like, I don't remember, because I lived in Paris as well, and I don't remember that this particular line had any major issues. So it's working, you know. So what I'm trying to tell you is, and in the Middle East, they're looking into unmanned taxis, aerial taxis as well, you know. So I don't know.
I know
Amazon
in America, in Vegas, they've got I think it's like the Vegas Loop, which is
Mm-hmm.
like the Tesla cars just going around. But to me, it's great that it's unmanned. It's like a fancy gimmick for me for Vegas to explain what the country is, because you could, like you just said, put a metro station in and have public transport that does the same thing rather than sit in a Tesla. But I think, I don't know, for me, I guess again the differentiation between like railways is that they're on a track. There's very little risk unless they come off the track, which happens, I guess. But with everything else, like a car, you have so many other factors like other drivers. And then planes, like you said, I mean, other planes as well. But at the same time, you also have meteorological differences
and 3 dimensions as well. Yeah. So I think, no, in air traffic management, we are human-centric. So human will remain the main decision maker. But the whole push is to how make their job easier and how to give them ready information they can use to make a decision. So this is where I'm kind of heading in me and my team. This is the direction we're heading when we're talking about automation. And yes, we talk about AI and human teaming according to EASA classification. And yes, we even spoke about fully automating certain tasks, but like low-level tasks in certain airspace areas, we may consider in future fully automating those tasks.
Interesting. Sorry, carry on.
No, please go ahead.
And do you think, like just now, because obviously like you worked in NATS before and now you work in SkyGuide, are there different air traffic navigation providers around the world? Are they all, do you think, on the same level? Or, for example, is it America making strides in this? Or, for example, like you mentioned in the Middle East, are any specific service providers like already implementing it? Or is it across the board that you're on a relatively similar level when it comes to sort of automating certain tasks?
There are huge differences depending on the size and the revenue stream of the air navigation service provider. But NETS is probably at the forefront as well. SkyGuide is really looking into certain like advanced automation levels. But the stuff I'm telling you with like, hey, let's get machine learning to push out 3 best options. This is something that FAA did, I would say 15 years ago.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, on the East Coast, there used to be a system that was non-mandatory. It was optional for controllers. It was called URET. And it's been abandoned since, but I can't get the reason why, you know.
Really?
Mitra, the big research institution in the US, Mitra, developed the tool. And URET used to develop essentially what I'm telling you, 3 best options for controllers. But the risk, and I may be saying wrong things now, I don't have enough detail, but if I would be doing this, I would never give controllers this like always the same order. So number 1 is always the best. Number 2 is a little bit less good. And number 3 is, I would actually randomly allocate the best option to force interrogation. Because if you give humans always 3 options and number 1 is always good, you may become lazy, as you said. And maybe on this day,
I think it might be like a psychological bias because you assume first, second, third.
It's always number 1.
So interesting. And do you
That's very dangerous. Don't ever stick. Just it has to be random allocation of the best if there is a lot of traffic and, you know, they don't have so much time. So I would give them two options: interrogate both. And we could, through automation, also check that they interrogated both.
Interesting. I'm fascinated now about why it didn't work. Now
I
curious.
don't know. I don't have enough. I was trying to dig out why it wasn't kept on the East Coast. But it was like a really breakthrough tool even at this time is still breakthrough.
Yeah.
You know? But it was a long time ago when I was a student.
Yeah. They must. I assume now, like the strides of AI, automation, machine learning is different than it was 15 years ago. So it'd be very interesting to see if and when another, like an FAA or the international one, or EASA or anything like that, when they launch it, if it actually takes off properly, because it'd be really good and it would be really interesting, even for me who's not in aviation, just to do like a case study between what happened 15 years ago, whether it was the technology just wasn't there, or whether it was, like you said, three options were just giving some lazy unconscious bias to people. But yeah, and in how many years do you think, I mean, I don't know if you can predict when this not necessarily the level 3 systems, but when do you think that the implementation of AI will be on a level of like 50-50 with people in air traffic controlling?
No, please. No.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because the things like aviation, it's a slow moving beast, you know, like we're a safety critical industry. We really have to make sure that things that we implement are safe. And even anytime you implement automation, it takes a long time to adjust it.
Yeah.
You know, and what I mean by
adjusting will never be the correct one.
is that the alerts you're getting are credible. That you minimize the amount of false alerts. Otherwise, people don't trust automation. And then also what I told you about this concept of switching it on and off. That's also something that we would need to research and look into and trial, simulate and see how it goes. So it's going to take us a bit of time to do this, but we are developing tools that are ML based that give controllers solutions essentially. But they are like a research and development at this stage, and we have some plans for implementation, but 50-50, no.
I mean, even in just looking around, like I've recently started looking at how to switch my just consulting. This is not the same level of aviation to AI co-pilots, and even just reading back about like OpenAI when it started, it was 5 years ago, but no one knew about it then. I think only people that were in that sphere knew about it. So if for them it takes them 5 years to get to a point where people trust it. And even now, I know people that use it from like just a business perspective, that now they think it's replacing Google, and then Google is now catching up. So I think the continuous evolution, but also learning and competition, just in business, not in aviation, will kind of force it to slowly integrate. So I can only imagine.
And now you have DeepSeek coming on the market.
I know. I saw, which is good. I mean, it's good to have. I think from my perspective, it's good to have competition, because then you always force models to compete to be the best. Because otherwise, when you have just OpenAI and ChatGPT, they think they're like an industry leader, which they are, but then they kind of become lazy. That the question then it becomes, how are you better than a Google? Because Google can now do AI as well. So this is very fascinating. I think from like the perspective of someone who is, I'd say, in the peripheral of aviation, knows a little bit, unless it sort of gets announced, or if there's this incident, for example, that then brings stuff like this to the forefront. If you don't know that much about aviation, you wouldn't think about this. But then it obviously makes sense, because the world is tech focused and innovative, and we're all in a tech age. So it would make sense that aviation would also use automation and ML. But I think from the perspective of sort of stuff that gets posted, I get the news, it's more things that are controversial people will read, rather than actually what is being researched and what is being done. Because sometimes, like you said, if the progress is slow to adoption, people don't really care until something bad happens. And then you'll get to the point where it is automated and adopted, and it just becomes like a normal way of life. And air traffic control is just their lives become easier, I guess. That they have.
We implement changes in a stepwise approach, and every step is really validated, verified. We spend a lot of time looking into side cases, those
Yeah.
things you didn't think about,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they always happen, they
Yeah.
always happen. And controllers may start using automation tools in ways that we didn't envisage. That happens as well. The first time that pilots had like a TCAS display in the cockpit, they started to question controller decisions.
Oh,
because for the
okay.
first time, they had a small display of traffic around them, and it's like, no, it's our job, because we had much better view of the traffic.
Yeah.
You only see like a small portion, of airspace. But it's things like this, where you really have to kind of observe the use of automation in real life, and start whenever you see deviation from intended purpose, you need to act,
Yeah, and slow. It makes sense now when you explain it more why it gets deployed so slowly, because I think from my perspective, because there's so many moving parts, the trust element, like you said with that, is that people will then not trust what someone is telling them, and they'll trust what they're seeing rather than information.
Yes.
So, and I guess that can't be quicker than the deployment. So it makes sense from just even like a human psychology perspective that everyone is learning, like people that aren't even in air traffic control, like the pilots and even like cabin crew, and even I guess people, because like now you have access to flight radar, and you start wondering, why is the flight delayed? And you realize the flight is not the problem. There's more things that could happen on the ground before the plane even takes off. And then you start seeing like all of a sudden there's a deviation to the route. And as someone who doesn't know this, you're like, well, why are they going around? And then from the air traffic controller perspective, there's probably a reason, like a storm or meteorological stuff, why they have to move. So it kind of creates more people thinking that they know more than they do, more than the people who are actually professionals.
And lots of times this is the case. Yeah, lots of times. But
amazing.
It's a human nature.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think, but it makes sense why it gets deployed slowly then, rather than big changes, because I guess big changes will then increase the likelihood of risk or problems being.
Yeah. And we're all about minimizing these risks or keeping risks as low as practicable.
Yes.
And we have to really deploy things step by step. And by doing step by step, you get people used to it.
Yes.
And then people start getting ideas. Oh, how can we do things even better? So they almost start influencing the next step.
Yeah. But it's more like a learning curve as well. Like, yes, the automation will do its thing, but it's a human learning aspect. Amazing. Well, I mean, thank you so much. This is like, again, I come in with the questions that I know that I want to have and I want to answer, but I think the way the conversation always goes, like, I'm learning more than I was half an hour on this call. But like I said, it's because things aren't necessarily readily available, just because people are working on it, and you don't want to necessarily tell stuff before it happens to sort of cause either like sensationalism or just having people intrigue and then ask what unexpected. So thank you very much. It was a very eye-opening conversation. I definitely see, even in just the world of automation, how this can actually copy and paste across the board. Because like I said earlier, I think I worry that people think that AI will either replace you, or they'll start to deploy AI and automation very quickly, and then things just go wrong, and you don't know what's going wrong. And also people just become lazy, like not in the aviation world, but now you have people that are like, I don't want to pay for a lawyer when I can write a contract on ChatGPT. And you can, but ChatGPT can't like defend you in court.
And ChatGPT is not as creative as certain lawyers. That creativity is what's missing with AI.
Yes.
AI
I think
gives
also it's soulless. AI is just like, they scan the internet and they give you an answer. It doesn't give you empathy. It doesn't give you like the social interaction. Like you said, like thinking outside the box. AI it's not meant to think outside of the box. It's very black and white.
But it's very vanilla, because it gives you some average of everything found on the internet. So there's nothing creative in it. You still need human to be creative, and that will never go away.
So, and then like I agree, like the same capacity, that's more like a co-pilot to your life and like a supporting tool rather than a replacer. Because I think a lot of people are worried that AI will replace you. And I think just the way the world is, just in business way, companies do try to replace with AI because it's a cutting cost. But then you bring back people when you realize that AI can't replace the human element, like you just said. But amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I hope this is as interesting to you as it was to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. I'm gonna pause so I can cut it later. But
thank you so much for your invite. Yes.
Thank you. I mean, To our listeners, what do you think? Would you feel comfortable in a fully autonomous flight? Let us know in the comments on social media. If you enjoy this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves aviation. We've also linked an article about Embraer's E2 enhanced takeoff system in the show notes. So check that out for more insights into the future of automated flying. Branka, thank you so much again for sharing your expertise. Until next time, keep making bold moves, and we'll see you in the next episode of The Next Big Move with Mila.